Hey, this is Kaz, and this is Nightmares at Midnight. Hello, and thank you for tuning in to episode 14. This episode today is going to be on the Wampahoofus. Before we jump into the Wampahoofus, just a few things. I want to apologize ahead of time. I know I sound different today. I am extremely stuffed up and sick and hunkering down at home. And if you hear some rattling or sounds in the background, we are having a blizzard right now. I've been calling it the Betty Whiteout 2.0 because in January we had some pretty bad storms and now it's that time again. So I just want to apologize if you hear those sounds. I can't do much about it. My house is shaking, and forgive me for sounding super sick, so I'm going to try to make my way through this, okay? Seeking occupational therapy services for your child in the Wasilla and Palmer area and you're on a waiting list? Clinic setting just isn't cutting it? Too many options or not enough? Wild Free Kids OT may be your answer. With no wait lists and extensive training, experience working with children and adolescents with behavior issues, we offer mobile, community, and nature-based OT where it matters most. You get real results, learning alongside your child and without compromising your way of life. Give us a call at 907-215-4438 or check us out on Facebook or online, Wild Free Kids OT. The Wampahoofus, I did not know what this one was. I had never heard of it until I got the book from my husband for my birthday last week. The book is called The United States of Cryptids, A Tour of American Myths and Monsters by J.W. Acker. And I was paging through it, trying to think about which one I wanted to do next for this week. Which reminds me, happy holidays now that those are over. I hope everybody enjoyed them and are looking forward to New Year's. Anyways, the Wampahoofus is in this book, and so I was like, I love the name. It's totally random. This one can't be a real one. And I did some research and found out that it seems to be one of the more realistic creatures, cryptids, that I have researched. So I think this one's pretty cool. So it won't be as long as normal because I don't think I'm going to make it into 30 minutes like normal. But I will give you the research that I have found, and hopefully it teaches you something you didn't know. So the Wampahoofus, or the plural I've heard Wampahoofuses or Wampahoofi, I will probably be using Wampahoofi if I'm talking about it because Wampahoofuses is really hard to say. Long before Bigfoot and Yeti became well known in Western popular culture, there was another legendary creature that was said to roam the woods of Vermont's Green Mountains. Quite possibly a distant cousin of the Rakabor, which is a pig-like creature, and almost certainly a near relative of the Wangdoodle, which has no defined character. The Wampahoofus was a large mammal that evolved with legs longer on one side than the other. The result was either a left-leaning or right-leaning beast that could move rapidly around mountains and hillsides, but only in one direction, clockwise or counterclockwise. By some accounts, the males went clockwise and females counterclockwise. So I'm going to read a passage from this book that talks about the males and females, just so you can kind of get a picture for it. The accounts claim that males and females have opposing short sides. That means males can only travel clockwise around a mountain and females counterclockwise, meeting at opportune times to mate. Still, others believe that which sides are short and which are long is a random trait and not a marker of which sex they are. That means any two Wampahoofuses, or Wampahoofi, can meet, and when they do, and if they are not ready to start a family, they must fight to the death, since neither of them can turn around. it's no wonder these animals are so rare as to be cryptozoological. As strange as the idea of bilaterally asymmetrical legs is, though, it is not unprecedented as a scientific theory. Some 17th century naturalists hypothesized that the decidedly uncryptozoological badger had uneven legs, explaining how it could clamber up and down hills so rapidly. So if by some chance it reversed course and ended up on the wrong side of a hill on the short side of its body, it could tumble down the slope to its death. So that's how they would fight to the death, is they would knock the other one down. Although details vary, the Wampahoofus was said to resemble a mix between a deer and a wild boar. So any of the pictures that I have seen, which I am assuming are edited, it almost looks more like a mountain goat. And when I was researching, that's what it made me think of as probably where people got the idea from, in earlier times when a lot more animals hadn't been discovered yet, is that they probably saw like a mountain goat, high up on the mountain, and because it is tilted to prevent itself from falling, which I've actually seen this here up in Alaska. I've seen that where I can't believe they're able to stay on the edge of cliffs like they are. But I think that that's probably where the Wampahoofus originated from, in my mind. I mean, research says other things, but I think that's probably where it came from. So while the Vermont varieties of the Wampahoofus had fur, a version with scales is also said to have existed elsewhere. Its color varied from a dark green to an almost glowing orange, so it kind of sounds like it went into the Hodag district for a little while. Some were three-toed, others had five. There's even mention of a cloven-hoofed Wampahoofus and one that grew a whistle at the end of its tail. So clearly this is a tall tail. When the mating period ends for them, they wander around the mountains, grazing on the vegetation and enjoying the sights below. Yet their herbivore lifestyle was not without its threats either. I mean, if you had two legs that were shorter than the other, I think you'd have a hard time probably too. Although there are a few reports of them being hunted, the Wampahoofus was always on guard. Their unique limb structure only enabled them to move in certain areas. They never entered the valleys or climbed beyond a certain elevation. And from what I read, only the females ventured higher than they should, and that was only to nurse their calves in a safe place. In a piece that I read for Nature Compass, a publication from the Green Mountain Club, writer Maeve Kim said her dad's great-grandfather once came across 5 of these ungainly cows, or Wampahoofus, each caring for one nursing calf, and that it was quite a sight to see. The origins of the Wampahoofus are a source of spirited debate. References to similar creatures can be found in records dating back hundreds of years, and not just in America. Sir Thomas Browne, for example, wrote in the 17th century that British badgers, or brocks, had legs of varied sizes, that a brock or badger hath the legs on one side shorter than of the other, though an opinion perhaps not very ancient is yet very general, received not only by theorists and unexperienced believers, but assented onto by most who have the opportunity to behold and hunt them daily. That was his quote. However, most agree that this particular hybrid originated in the 1800s before the Civil War. And while Vermont seems like the likely birthplace, there's also speculation it was first spotted in northern Maine. So experts, a term that I use lightly, believe that the Wampahoofus came to life in the lumber camps of the northern woods. Wow, I feel like a lot of these are created in lumber camps because that was probably the most popular area at the time for tall tales. Back then, logging was the largest and most profitable industry in Vermont and much of New England. Before railways and working roads, logs traveled down lakes, rivers, and other bodies of water. Lumberjacks spent months deep in the woods cutting trees and sending them off for processing. At night, around the blazing campfires, these hard-working men killed time sharing far-fetched stories and crafting all sorts of mythical and legendary creatures, like the Hodag, for example. Their vivid imaginations may well have sparked the tales of the Wampahoofus and related variations elsewhere. In Fearsome Critters by Henry Tyron, one of many collections of lumberjack folklore. Henry described the migration of the Wampahoofus, which he referred to as gougers. There is a bunch of names for the Wampahoofus, and gouger is one of them that I have seen quite a bit. Henry said normal gougers must obviously travel around the hillside, and in making their daily rounds for food, they wear the characteristic, partly gouged out paths so familiar to woodsmen. These paths were once very common in New England, but today they are thought to be most frequently seen in the partly forested regions of the West. One source told him that the gouger population, or the Wampahoofus, had grown too thick in New England, and there wasn't enough food to go around, and somebody just had to move out. Other accounts claim that a pair of entrepreneurial New Englanders brought a Wampahoofus south on a circus-style traveling show, although all that the eager crowd ever witnessed was a set of furry feet peeking from below an elaborate curtain. Wow, I keep having connections to the Hodag here. The showman would poke at the drape, causing the creature to wail and scream. Amidst the chaos, an alarm went off and the creature would escape unseen. A Midwestern newspaper warned residents of this formidable animal on the loose, stating that there is no knowing the amount of mischief he may occasion while roaming at large and disturbing the calmness of those quiet people who know nothing about him. Yet, somehow, the Yankees always recaptured the devious beast and had it ready for the next show a few towns away. Fact or fiction, evolution didn't work out well for the Wampahoofus. Although a left-leaning Wampahoofus could mate with a right-leaning one, the result was a severely deformed offspring with mismatched legs. A poor hybrid that could not move and often perished soon after birth. So this part, when I read that, it reminded me of goats. So maybe goats are just descendants and they ended up having all short legs and it just kept happening that way. Eventually, mating became impossible and the species died out, according to research. So I have read several articles. One of them said that the Wampahoofus birthed them live, like give birth to their live babies. The other one I read is that they birth them as eggs and then they grow out of the eggs. I feel like it's more probable that they birth them live. The last traces of this elusive creature can be seen along Mount Mansfield, which is Vermont's highest peak. There's an actual trail there called Wampahoofus Trail that intersects the journey to the summit. So the path was reportedly named by a professor who thought a nearby rock formation looked like the legendary creature. So that's a legit name. These days, hikers may giggle at the trail's name and some might snap a picture, which I did post on the page, the Facebook page, but few know the woods are a place where a strange, wobbling creature once roamed. Which reminds me, because I jumped right into this episode, that if you want to be able to catch up on episodes and you want to see the pictures that I'm posting about each episode, make sure you're checking on our Facebook and Instagram because I post pictures there during the week about the following episodes. So I was looking for accounts of the Wampahoofus, and honestly, there's not a lot of articles about this, but one that I did find was about a Colorado local resident, Kelly Lubering, I think I pronounced that right. She spotted what she said was a rare sight. A right-sided side hill Wampahoofus scaling the cliffs above Minturn. I was out for my morning run when I noticed movement above me. When I pulled some collapsible binoculars out from my fanny pack, I knew for sure that's what I was seeing. Even in the dim light, I could tell that the Wampahoofus had longer legs on the right. So the Wampahoofus is a mammal distantly related to mountain goats, that's what she's stating, with longer legs on one side of its body so that it can walk more easily on steep hillsides. To describe what else it looks like is the Wampahoofi have large eyes that help them see better at night while browsing high up in the alpine. Their tail is also long to aid in balancing on loose scree slopes, and they have prominent whiskers to sense changes in the atmosphere so that they can better respond to the quickly changing weather. So by that description, it kind of sounds like a mountain lion and a goat put together. So Kelly was her name. Kelly was in Colorado, so a sighting that far north in Colorado is pretty unusual. Normally they stay on the east coast. So, according to Dr. Hannah Fake, a leading researcher on Wampahoofus ecology, the primary breeding population of the Wampahoofus is in the San Juan Mountains of southwestern Colorado because they require remote, unvisited hillsides on which to raise their young. There is multiple states claiming the Wampahoofus. We've gone from Vermont to Maine to Colorado now. So, the Colorado story is that development within the Eagle Valley spurred an increase in foot and motor traffic near northern breeding populations, with both the additional noise and more frequent encounters with hikers stressing pups, which is apparently baby Wampahoofi, during the crucial stages of early development and increasing pup mortality during the first year of life. Because their population was previously decimated from hunting, they quickly left that region. I looked up for basically pop culture on the Wampahoofus. Honestly, the only book that I could find was called The Wampahoofus's Favorite Place. And this book is by Zoe Linton, and I found it on goodreads.com. It's like a children's book, it looks like, based by the pictures, which is kind of cool to be able to incorporate that in. I did find t-shirts and stickers on Etsy that look very like you'd put on like water bottles or on your car. I did find that it's in North Carolina, surprisingly, but there's a drink called the Wampahoofus, and it's a smoked maple bacon imperial porter. So if you like to drink beer, that's the one for you. It's at Mythic Brewing Rocky Mount. I think that's the name of the bar. They also have some other cool beer names that I just wanted to include. Was called the Abominable Joe Man instead of Snowman. And it's a French vanilla mocha stout. And then they have the Squatch, which is like a sweet dessert beer. So I don't drink beer. I think it's cool that they have these cryptid beers like that. I was looking for movies and videos, and honestly there wasn't a lot, but I found a video that was created by a Vermont local to bring light to energy efficiency. See what I did there? Starring the Wampahoofus, but in the video, he looks more like a Yeti than he did the typically described Wampahoofus. And then one thing that I also found too, which was kind of cool, it reminded me of Hodag Fest, was in Vermont, there is a charity disc golf tournament that benefits the White Light Foundation, and that's called the Wampahoofus, and it looks like it's been going since like 2016 or 2017, and they have like live music and other fun activities while you're disc golfing. So no promises that you'll see a Wampahoofus on Wampahoofus Trail. I guess they just couldn't find a leg to stand on. Anyways, so that's about all I have on the Wampahoofus. Next week, I was thinking about doing the Skinwalker, so that one might be a little bit scarier of an episode. I hear a lot that people aren't listening to my podcast because they are afraid that it's going to be too scary. I think a couple of episodes have been on the scarier side, but I don't think they're relatively overly scary. I think they're more informational about cryptids. So please, please, please share these to your friends and family. Let them know that they're not terrifying. And I mean, normally on my website, I put on there whether they're explicit or whether they are scary or whether they are gory, so that way young kids aren't listening. I don't want to scar your children. I just like to talk about cryptids and spooky things. So obviously this isn't really a podcast meant for children. It's meant for my fellow crypto fans that like to listen to that kind of thing and like to be scared and probably don't want to listen to my podcast at night. So I've kind of been floating between scary and cryptids. The last few episodes have been focusing on cryptids and certain creatures, and I want to bounce back to some of the scarier ones too. So next week's episode will probably be about the Skinwalkers and Skinwalker Ranch and the real story of Courage the Cowardly Dog. So if you have any input on those, please feel free to email me at nightmaresatmidnightpodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook. And in case you didn't know, I'm not sure how you couldn't at this point because I give the same spiel every time, but just in case you don't know, you can listen to us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcast, Apple Podcast, Podcast Index, TuneIn Plus Alexa, and Podcast Addict. And you can also listen to us on our website, like our actual website. This is where I can see if there's downloads and stuff. nightmaresatmidnightpodcast.buzzsprout.com. So please share. Please let the word out. I want to grow the podcast. Don't forget about our Patreon. You can go there and get exclusive content. You can get stickers. You can get extras. Just check it out. Our Patreon is patreon.com/nightmaresatmidnightpodcast, and there's different groups that you can join and support our podcast so that way we can keep going with it. And like always, catch us next time. Kayla's Kitchen and Closet. Downtown Park Falls is your local one-stop shop. Stop by the kitchen, open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., where they are serving up your favorites for breakfast and lunch, along with their always tasty lattes, frappes, desserts, and much more. The Closet is open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. They have everything you need from lounging at home to attending a special event, including jewelry, shoes, and accessories. Find the perfect outfit, a tasty treat, or just the right gift at Kayla's Kitchen and Closet, downtown Park Falls, or online at kaylaskitchenandcloset.com. Kayla and the crew are always there for you.